that doesn't count in their view of life as adultery. So they are effectively taught that a girl who doesn't dress as they would dress is meat to be abused, and they have these.
Rupert Lowe didn't come to Joe Rogan's studio to play safe. He came to say the uncomfortable part out loud. From parallel legal systems, grooming scandals buried by politics, and demographic changes that are worse than the tragic fall of Lebanon. What Lowe unpacks in this interview is the ugly side of Britain many politicians see, but only few dare name.
What happened is it gradually happened, and I think these rape gangs have been going on, or we know they have, for 30, 40, probably 50 years, to a lesser extent. But when Tony Blair got in and he undermined a lot of constitutional sort of historical law, you got an acceleration of immigration from other parts of the world, not just from Europe, but also from other countries, South Asian countries in particular, who came to the UK. And the genesis of the rape gangs really is, I think, the cultural oil and water mix of these people coming from what I call clannish societies in South Asia and coming to very high trust societies such as the one we had and the one you have here, which have taken thousands of years to develop. So they're high trust societies where, and you know, Lee Kuan Yew based Singapore on post-war Britain, where you had honesty boxes for newspapers in London, and you had a country that was completely at peace with itself. So it won the war, it respected peace, it respected freedom, and people were rebuilding their lives, having fought a Second World War to free Europe from sort of, in this case, Germany. Previously, we'd done it at Waterloo when we relieved Europe of the French with Napoleon. So it really accelerated after 97 when a lot of the legislation that Tony Blair and his cohorts passed, such as the Human Rights Act, which embeds within it the ECHR, he created the Supreme Court, they passed laws like the Equalities Act, and there are a raft of other legal acts they passed which effectively empowered a multicultural society, which in some ways, I think, damaged the interests of the British people. So,
Lowe is speaking about the challenges of bringing people from clannish societies in South Asia into higher trust Western societies. It's not about race. It's about culture. Britain has long been a place where people come together around shared values. When large groups arrive with very different expectations, with loyalty to family or tribe first, the fit isn't seamless. Towns across the country show this tension is palpable. People sense the changes in daily life, but hesitate to name it. Lowe's point lands because he's describing what many quietly observe. The mental gymnastics required to pretend it's all working perfectly are getting harder to sustain. You can feel the weight of that observation hanging in the air.
This is my point, is what is the benefit for them to be joined up with the rest of Europe? Is it just purely financial? Is it a power-based strategy where if you can diminish the quality of life for people and institute more laws and put more restrictions on them, you can control them easier, and it's less pushback for the politicians, less pushback for the people that are in charge?
Just as Rogan leans in to unpack that cultural friction, Lowe shifts gears and lands on something even more concrete that raises eyebrows.
And who have their own courts, and who
they have their own court.
They have their own courts, Sharia courts. Yes, a parallel legal system.
Okay, so it's an unrecognized by the British government parallel legal system that exists inside of England.
It's tolerated.
Tolerated.
It's tolerated.
So they're aware of it.
Yes.
And they're aware of the punishments that this court dishes out?
It's rather like they're policing their own people under their own laws.
And they're just allowing that?
They're allowing that, yeah.
Lowe's points on the presence and tolerance of Sharia councils operating in the UK is hard to miss. Parallel legal systems are tolerated, even if not officially recognised. Britain has its own laws, rooted in centuries of tradition. When another system runs alongside it, questions arise about fairness and equality. The quiet acceptance of separate rules in the same country feels like a slow erosion of something fundamental. Lowe is stating it plainly. The implication hangs in the air. How long can a society function with two sets of rules? Rogan's reaction shows he's processing the scale of what that really means. Before Rogan could fully digest the idea of parallel justice, Lowe drops a historical parallel that makes the stakes impossible to ignore.
I believe, I don't know about you, but I believe if you come to our country, you should live under our laws.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, the idea of, well, the United States in particular is a melting pot. And, people come from all over the place, and it's one of the cool things that there's all these different cultures. But there's certain cultures that if you allow them to come into your community and then they institute the laws of the country where they came from, you're going to have a real problem. Like, they don't live the way you live. They don't have the same respect for women that you have. They don't treat them the same way. They don't allow dogs. Like, there's a lot of
That's right.
stuff that a lot of people might not even be aware that come with that problem. It's like the idea is supposed to be that Western society is inclusive and progressive because we're intelligent and educated and we care. But you can care so much that you let in criminals, and then you give those criminals all your money, and then the criminals can take over your country slowly but surely. So, and this is no one thinks that's a possible thing. No, people look at the Colosseum, you look at ancient Greece, and they think, wow, I wonder what happened to those guys. What do you think happened? Probably the same shit that's happening right now to England, the same shit that could have happened to America. Civilizations fall apart for various reasons. And one great way to get them to fall apart is to bring in a bunch of people, and they don't have to follow your laws, and they bring the laws of, wherever they're from, whatever fundamentalist religion country they're from, where they have a bunch of crazy laws that are kind of archaic.
Well, this is Sharia law, Islamic law, as you probably know. I mean, again, to your point, I think the best example I can give people of what happens if you do that is when Lebanon got its independence.
He references the demographic shifts in Lebanon as a cautionary tale, and indeed it is. Lebanon was once a confident, open Christian majority country with great universities and a vibrant society. Now it's changed as the Muslim population grew. Civil war followed. Today, Hezbollah holds significant influence in the region, sadly. Notice how Lowe uses it not as fear-mongering, but as a real-world case study.
They were a Christian country, and they were a very confident country. They were, they had the best universities. They had a very open society. I never went to Beirut. I don't know if you went to Beirut, but Beirut in the 60s was meant to be the best place on earth to be. Great wine, freedom, very enlightened. It was lots of people were there. The minute that the Muslim population went over about 15%, you started to get a problem with a civil war. You got the Druze and Maronite Christians in a civil war with the Muslims, and now Lebanon is a Muslim country, and Hezbollah, backed by Iran, is effectively running the show. So to your point, I couldn't agree more. And the rape gang report, which we've written, was crowdfunded by 20,000 concerned English people who we raised not a huge amount of money. We raised about £600,000 in varying quantities people gave, and we did it because the government will not have a statutory inquiry. So our government, and particularly the Labour Party, have been presiding over this because it goes to the Muslim bloc vote. So we have in the UK a system of postal voting. And in a lot of the inner cities and the places where these Islamic populations live, they are or have historically voted Labour. That's beginning to change. They're beginning to vote for Muslim independence now, and I sit with some of them at the back of Parliament. So effectively, this inquiry we did, we set out with a completely unbiased view of what we would find, and we did it because we were pushing the government to have a statutory inquiry. And a lot of the reason I got involved in it was I think it was Elon Musk who triggered. He talked about it because a lot of people in the UK, I don't think, know the extent to which this has been happening and the length of time it's been happening for.
Indeed, societies can change dramatically when cultural and religious balances shift without careful integration. Lebanon was once praised as a success story in the Middle East. The warning feels relevant to anyone watching Britain's own changes with open eyes. Rogan listens intently. The parallel is impossible to dismiss. As the weight of Lebanon's story settles, Lowe turns to one of the most painful chapters in modern Britain.
Why is that? What is that? A failure of your media? Is it a failure of the politicians? Like, why don't people know about
Well,
this?
it's a total failure of the media, because the media are supposed to be an independent body that holds to account failures of the state. And it's basically because this block vote through the postal voting system, which needs to be changed, is effectively, or has been, keeping the Labour Party in power. So they've put power ahead of principle. And in the report we cover this. We've covered the reasons why it's so serious. And to your point, we even cover, as you quite rightly say, the fact that dogs are not liked by the Islamic faith, largely because Muhammad liked cats, he didn't like dogs. And what we wanted to do was interview victims, which we did. We did it properly. It took us over a year. We had a rape gang victim, Sammy Woodhouse, who led it. She's got a child by her rapist. And we had a team of people, and we literally produced the witness bundles, and we listened to the witnesses, and then we had a 2-week hearing in London where people gave evidence, and we had a proper barrister who effectively presided over it and then helped us write the report. So effectively Graham Smith, the barrister, did a fantastic job. And we didn't start out with any preconceived ideas. It started because we read some court transcripts of some of the people who've been found guilty of this, which the government, by the way, has tried to keep quiet. Some of the historical court transcripts disappear. So we've been calling for these transcripts to be kept now. We've actually tried to make a noise about that. And
Lowe details his crowdfunded report on grooming gangs. The crimes are perpetrated largely by men from specific backgrounds. The government has been slow to address it fully. Lowe and his team listened to victims and produced a thorough document. It's a heavy subject. The scale and the reluctance to name patterns have left many feeling betrayed. The failure to protect vulnerable girls in places like Rotherham was a national scandal. Lowe's involvement came from concern, not politics. The report was crowdfunded by ordinary people who wanted answers. It's a reminder that when institutions fail, citizens sometimes step in. Rogan's reaction shows the conversation has hit a nerve.
We read this, and the more we carried on with the rape gang inquiry, the more it became clear to us that obviously there's a link between this power and the abuse and grooming and if you like, damage that was done to white working class English girls. And it does go, and in the report we've looked at the reasons why, to your point, there is a cultural difference of opinion between an open, high trust Christian view of women particularly and the Islamic view of women, which is all in the report. So for instance, as you probably know, if a woman accuses somebody of rape, and a lot of these Muslims come from Pakistan, Joe. They're predominantly Pakistan, and they're predominantly from one part of Pakistan called Mirpur. There are some from Bangladesh, there are some from Somalia, there are some from Eritrea. There are other Muslim countries that perpetrate some of this. And of course there are white people who perpetrate rape as well, but nothing on the scale of this. This is quite horrific. And our report has effectively uncovered this. I think we've played a part with this report in the government saying that they're going to have now a statutory inquiry, because we didn't have any statutory powers to be able to force people to appear at our hearing. They all appeared voluntarily. The government can actually force people legally to appear. They can actually make it a legal requirement that people attend. We couldn't do that. But there had been reports in the past. There was the Jay report in 2014, and there's been the Casey report, all of which confirmed that this was happening, and the state still continued to try and pretend it was just happening in a small number of siloed areas where you obviously had a high Islamic population. the state is.
While Rogan is still absorbing the weight of that report, Lowe circles back to deeper cultural questions that many avoid.
I don't know whether it's quite the same here, whether you've got the similar thing with the Somalis in Minnesota.
You do in Dearborn, Michigan. Dearborn, Michigan just had a gigantic Islamic parade where you just see tens of thousands of people holding flags and walking on the street, and
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy. It's crazy. And they've also, one of the things that's funny about Dearborn is all the progressives, it's a very liberal place. They're like, welcome, welcome, everyone's welcome for all cultures. And as soon as they got into power, they banned the pride flag. That was the first thing they did.
Well, I'm afraid they have quite strong views on that sort of thing.
Oh yeah, that's why Queers for Palestine is always hilarious. Like, and then you see the meme Palestine for Queers, and it's throwing people off roofs. It's
it's like the chap who runs our Green Party is a gay Jew. So I mean, he's going to have a problem if these guys get anywhere near power. But that doesn't seem to put the progressives off. They still seem to.
But this is what's crazy, is that their society is like Islamic society is completely patriarchal. The women are absolutely second-class citizens.
Yes.
They have completely different laws for how the women can dress. What happens to the woman if someone has sex with? First of all, if they commit adultery, they can be killed.
Stoned to death.
Yeah, and I watched a horrible video where a father did it to his daughter.
Yes, well, you do get these killings.
Honor killings. Yeah, or brothers. The brother will kill the daughter if the daughter shamed the family. It's like, hey, guys, how are you progressive when you're supporting this? And it's because the concept of not being racist, not being called racist, the fear of that is so strong. They're willing to adopt all sorts of things that are the complete antithesis of everything they believe in.
Well, in the UK, I don't know if you have it.
Specific cultural practices, such as the treatment of women, attitudes toward dogs, and Sharia law, are incompatible with British values. Lowe speaks from observation, not theory. Britain has evolved into a society that values equality and individual rights. When those clash with imported practices, tension follows. Lowe isn't calling for hate. He's calling for honesty.
I mean, it fascinates me that they never seem to say anything about these, what I call clannish, tribal cultures who have a completely different view of women.
Yeah.
And to your point, again, in our report, a woman, if she accuses in Pakistan a man of rape, she has to have 4 male witnesses who actually have to witness and swear that they've seen her being penetrated by the rapist. And you've actually got women in prison because if she can't prove that she's been raped under those rules, then she can be sent to prison. And there are many women languishing in Pakistani prisons for that very reason. And this is the sort of extraordinary cultural oil and water which just doesn't mix, Joe.
Well, it's also the mental gymnastics that you have to accept that as a part of Britain. And because you're progressive is really crazy. It just shows how these ideologies, these cult-like ideologies, can completely defy logic, completely defy common sense, and just you have a set of rules that you're supposed to adhere to. If you deviate from those rules, you're a racist. You don't want to be a racist, right? Then everyone's welcome.
As you say, it's honor killings, it's tribal.
Yeah.
Your first loyalty is to your tribe and your family, not to your host country who's actually got their own laws. There are all sorts of hadith rulings which they can use to justify it. I mean, for instance, if they rape a white girl, that doesn't count in their view of life as adultery. So they are effectively taught that a girl who doesn't dress as they would dress is meat to be abused, and they have these.
The mental gymnastics required to ignore these differences, he suggests, are unsustainable. The quiet frustrations in communities across the country are telling. People sense the changes, but fear speaking up. Lowe's words carry weight because they come from someone who has looked closely at the evidence. Rogan nods along. The conversation has reached a place few politicians dare to go.
Extraordinary sort of cultural views
You see,
that
you
are
keep
completely
saying,
incompatible, in my view, with a society like ours, where we are a matriarchal society which respects women. I think we have grown to respect women. Obviously, they've now got an omnipotent position within our society. Certainly in the UK, I'm sure it's true here too, and quite right. They play a part in our society. They're a very, very important part of everything. But again, under the Islamic code, I think that the Muslims are frightened of female sexuality. It's all there, and as you know, you get FGM, female genital mutilation. So these cultures, I think, Joe, and to your point, are just incompatible unless you have a very strong government which basically protects its electorate from any subversive behavior which is not compatible with our values.
you keep using the term meat. Is that how they
Rupert Lowe's conversation with Joe Rogan isn't about scoring points. Rather, it aims to bring us face to face with uncomfortable truths. From parallel courts to grooming scandals, he laid out a picture of a country grappling with rapid change. Britain has a proud history of openness, but openness without integration has costs. Lowe's words carry weight because they come from someone who has looked closely at the evidence. The questions he raises deserve honest answers. It's sad the Parliament is too busy playing two-tier politics to provide those answers.